Oh, man. You might be wondering, why am I laughing? We'll get to that in a little bit, folks, because let me tell you, it's a doozy. But before we discuss that situation, we need to talk about my last video, because while I did get a lot of support, I am incredibly grateful for all the positive comments, the likes, the subscribers. What I wanted to talk about was there's probably some people that are probably questioning, or they might have just some questions in general. Can you get around the TPM, or, can you bypass all of the checks in general that Windows 11 places? Well, you would. Keyword being would. But there is one comment by Rody Poulet. I apologize if I butcher that name, but he's basically talking about how I'm wrong and to not believe idiots on the internet. That's not entirely what I wanted to focus on. I wanted to direct your attention to the bottom of that comment. Why not switch to Windows 10 or 11 LTSC or Tiny 10 or 11? Why I would not switch to Tiny 10 or 11 is obvious. The Tiny series of OSs are custom ISOs. Remember, this isn't Linux, where it's open source and it's a fork of an OS, and with open source Linux distros, they really don't come with any viruses at all. This is just a version of Windows, but with a lot of the stuff removed. Like I said in my custom Windows version videos from way back about over a year ago, I always say never use custom Windows ISOs as your daily driver at all, because who knows, they could contain malware or viruses, since, well, this is Windows after all, and it has that closed source nature to it. But I wanted to focus specifically on the LTSC builds. Now, what is LTSC? LTSC stands for Long-Term Servicing Channel. It's a version of Windows designed for special purpose devices like medical equipment, kiosks, and point-of-sale systems. LTSC is basically Windows, but with most of the bloatware gone. So you might think, well, LTSC doesn't sound that bad. It actually sounds like a good alternative to... There's more to it than meets the sound, I guess you could say in this case. Like I said, LTSC is designed for specialized systems. Already, that's a big issue, because of the lack of access and the lack of feature updates. You can't just get LTSC from the Microsoft Store like you can with Windows 10 or 11. I mean, technically you can, but you have to either register your business with Microsoft, or, well, let's just say you'll have to sail the 7 seas in order to get an ISO. They're not going to want to go out of their way just to have a few more years of Microsoft support for Windows 10 or Windows 11, whichever the case. They'll just find the easiest way of upgrading, whether that means Windows 11, Mac, or Linux. And sure, the tech-savvy people will try either of these things. Again, remember, most people aren't tech-savvy, and they just want an OS that gets their shit done. The world isn't just about you. It's about everybody. Keep that in mind. Quit being selfish. And also, your LTSC point kind of strengthens my point of what I said about Microsoft putting you through all of these unnecessary hurdles in order to use their operating system. Because in order to use Windows 10, at this point, it's like you have to either use LTSC or you pay Microsoft another $30 for 1 more year of support. Neither of these are good options, and they won't last forever. Most people don't want to do this either. Heck, a lot of people went back to Windows 7. I'm dead serious, because, they're getting so sick of Microsoft's bullshit. if they're constantly having their privacy violated, like, why not use a good version of Windows like Windows 7, even though that's already out of support? Plus, even if LTSC was more accessible, you know, you're still supporting Microsoft, a company known to have the phrase embrace, extend, and extinguish, trying to wipe their competition and basically creating a monopoly. And they've been doing this for years. Yeah, I do not support that one bit. And if you want to fight back against Microsoft, don't use their products. Plain and simple, speak with your wallet, or rather your time in this case, because, well, you know, because of their telemetry bullshit. Plus, LTSC is also closed source too. Who knows, again, what's in the code? It could still be spying on you on a minutely basis and you have no idea. The reason why I laughed earlier in the video was this. Microsoft is now cracking down on the bypass methods for TPM and the checks for people setting up Windows 11. You know those tricks where you could edit the registry and you can use the command prompt to disable the TPM and the security check? Well, guess what? You can't do that anymore. Oh boy. So in order to use Windows 11, you have no choice. Look at that. You have to create a Microsoft account. You might think, oh, well, what's the problem with creating a Microsoft account? Here's my question to rebuttal this. Why do we need to make a Microsoft account in order to even use our computer in the first place? Why? Again, another arbitrary requirement. Man, Microsoft, they are just making it harder and harder to use Windows every passing day. I remember with Windows 7, there was barely any telemetry. You didn't need to create a Microsoft account. No, it was just a better experience all around. For Windows anyway, the era of people having their own privacy, freedom, and safety, it's going away. We really are living in a dystopian future here, my friends. This is just insane. This is some scary shit. So if Microsoft is pulling all these stunts and I don't want to use Windows, what can you do? Well, I guess if you have money, you could buy a Mac, but the real solution, like I said before in the last video, use Linux. It's safer, it's open source, it has way better performance than Windows ever will, and it's just more honest, if that makes any sort of sense. It's not constantly trying to hide its code, it's not trying to hide what it's trying to do. It's open source. I think it's the future for computers and software. Denmark has recently switched its software from Office 365 and Windows to LibreOffice and Linux. Germany's government has also recently cut ties with Microsoft and its programs. French city of Lyon has also thrown Microsoft in the garbage. So, yeah, even governments in the European Union are switching to Linux. If you want to start with using Linux, I would recommend using Linux Mint since, well, it looks and feels the most familiar to Windows, just without Microsoft's infectious software. Release yourself from Microsoft's shackles. Switch to Linux. I can't believe this is all just coming to a head. You know, this is insane. You practically can't even use Windows 11 anymore. Hey, you know what? At least there's Linux. Anyway, guys, you know, just another quick video. If you like the video, you know, make sure you give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to support me financially, I also have a $2 membership, which basically gives you a shout out at the end of each video. So, until next time, guys, peace.